I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Number 1. If everyone would rise for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
I didn't get the memo.
Everybody's wearing blue up here.
No, I didn't. Sorry.
You got the wrong shade, or it's the wrong shade.
All right, Camilla, would you do roll call for us?
Yes, Mr. Heather,
Here.
Mr. Martinez,
Here.
Mr. Castillo,
Here.
Mr. Ceballos.
Here.
And Mr. Navarro.
Here.
And we do have a quorum.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Item 4 is minutes. Approval of minutes for May 9th and May 30th, 2023. Those are in your packets. I'll entertain a motion when you're ready for adoption or.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of May 9th and May 30th, 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against? None, motion passes. Thank you very much. Item 5 is citizens' comments. Citizens are required to fill out a witness card no later than 5:45 p.m. They are located here at 1110 Houston Street, City Hall. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. No more than 3 persons will be allowed to speak on any side of an issue. Speakers may not pass their minutes to any other speaker. Comments should be relevant to city business and delivered in a professional manner. No derogatory remarks will be permitted. Anybody sign up to make comments?
At the moment, we don't have any comments.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Item 6, discussion on any downtown-related effort or activity of board members' interest or concern. Is there anything not on the agenda that the board wants to discuss? Not hearing any new item. I'll move on to the next item. Item 7, administrative status, update on ongoing work items, including those listed below. And item A is missing a word. It should say TERS informational website. But I know Rick's been preparing, and team, everybody in KCI and Viviana have been working on this update. So, Rick?
Website.
Yeah.
Good evening, members of the board. Just a couple of updates. We do want to talk about first that the website is live. So, and I'm trying to pull it up right now. So if you go to downtownters1.org, it's live, so you guys can access it now. We'll make sure to get with the planning department to
link it.
to it. We do have our, about, the TERS, the history of the TERS, the current board of directors, and the related documents related to the formation of the TERS. We do need to update it a little bit. We have more information related to the phase 1 projects. Again, we'll work on that here to get it more up to date. It does have the meetings, so all of the meetings are on here. If you go to the, you can play it from here, or you can go to click here for access, and it takes you to the City of Laredo's YouTube webpage, which has all of the meetings there listed. So all of this information is readily available and accessible to anyone that wants to find it.
Do you have minutes, Rick? Do you have the minutes up?
I don't have the minutes on here, so we're trying to collect all of those. I know we have some. If you can send those to us, we'll link those to here as well. We'll go ahead and create another tab for the minutes, and we'll just add it to it. And so this is a work in progress, obviously, but it's there, and we can certainly tweak it as we see fit. Just to let you all know, we did obtain the domain for 2 years. It was like you get one, buy one, get one free, so we got it for an extra year. And we went ahead and purchased the hosting for a year. So that was the cheapest way to do it. And so at the next board meeting, we'll run those invoices by so you all can see what that cost was. But it was pretty minimal.
So you're saying Able City is the owner of the site for right now?
Yes, for now.
Were we gonna switch it over
It-
to compensate you guys for doing that?
No, I think at the last meeting, we were directed to just kind of manage it as a
Okay.
reimbursable expense. So, I
Then
think
it
it's
belongs to the TERS.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes, it belongs to you guys.
Right.
Yes, it doesn't belong to us. Yes, if I misspoke, I'm sorry. Yeah, it belongs to you guys. I'm just saying we'll help you guys manage it
Yeah, yeah.
essentially. So if you tell us what to put on it, what to move, we're certainly available to do that, so.
Rick, is it possible also to add some drawings, conceptual drawings? and-
Yes,
and
yeah, so under-
Whatever you feel comfortable sharing in terms of construction drawings?
Yeah, so under projects, we're going to revamp this a little bit to show the actual, all of the latest information. I know we kind of have listed phase one, phase two, phase three, but we're going to revamp that to actually show phase one, which is the project that KCI is currently working on. And then we can talk about phase two, which is the grant that we're attempting to get. So we'll revamp this to have the most current information that's on it.
And it has the zone, right? The zone map?
Yeah, here it is.
Okay, great.
So with that said, the only other thing that we want to report about is I think we have an item there for the murals. I know that's kind of been a topic of conversation as we've been going through this. I did reach out to the Mural and Wayfinding Committee for a meeting late on Friday. I know it was a quick turnaround, so we weren't able to meet, but we did look at some different options, and I have a real brief presentation to kind of go through that for you all. Sorry, I'm looking for oh, here it is. Okay. So again, a presentation on the murals, and more related to the procurement, because that's the next sort of the big hurdle that we need to take on as far as that's concerned. Again, the map, we always just show this to kind of remind everybody what we're doing here as far as the scope. We had presented, I want to say back in 2021, December, I believe, some suggested mural locations. And we've listed about 7 of them on here, 8 actually. We did meet as a team earlier today to kind of narrow some locations down to move forward. And so you can see the first 4 here, there's some great locations where we could probably put some murals on there. Again, we have the old HEB, which is now currently going to be the Sheriff's Office building. We have this mural, the Orchards Bakery. We have the Housing Authority building, as well as this wall along Farragut and Davis Street, which is a little off the beaten path. In looking at this, we think that the locations we should be looking at currently are to target the publicly owned facilities, to kind of minimize that shared agreement timeline. If it's a private building, then we need to find the owner. We need to kind of go through that whole process of getting them to agree to allow us to do these murals there. So we wanted to sort of hone in on these 2 locations to start, since they were already on our list. One, we can talk to Webb County. We can also approach the Housing Authority about allowing us to utilize these spaces for the murals. Now, we know we're still going to have to get an agreement with them to do that, but we think that obviously it's an entity that should be easier to work with, we feel. So we wanted to narrow it down, these 2 locations. Now, of course, this is ultimately your all's decision. We just wanted to bring these recommendations to you guys. So that's one thing that we'd like for the TERS board to rank these locations, or if you even agree with these locations. If you agree, then rank them so that we can kind of go in that order of approaching the different entities to see if we can get them to agree to allow us to enter into that agreement to work with them. So that's the first item. This next one is related to the procurement. And we did receive through community development RFQ submittal process that they used for the mural that they did here at the City Hall Apartments, right here at the corner of Convent and, no, it's not Convent, it's
Yeah,
it's Convent and Houston, right? It was very simple. I think they listed a budget of like $10,000. They, and I actually have I brought that with me so y'all can see. So they had so they issued a call for proposals. Let me try to zoom in a little bit more. There you go. So, we can certainly use this as a template to move forward with getting procurement for the murals that we want to approach. They also had some guidelines as well, which I believe are these notes here. So again, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. If something is being used, we'd like to utilize that and make that work. Let me see, the other one was, yeah. So it was very simple. They were just asking for a concept drawing or image, the name of the artist who will be completing the mural, examples of past work, and a proposed budget. Now, one of the items related to that, and I'll show that on back to my proposal. So again, what we want to do is to submit a notice to interested artists via the paper or on the website as well. Now that we have a website, we can announce it there as well. We really would like to open it up for 30 days, for a month, so that we can get people to respond as quickly as possible. Our goal would be to come back to the board next month with top 3 or whatever, right?
But we have to select the drawing?
Yeah.
Give it to them?
Yes, yeah. So, we're talking about utilizing the City of Laredo scope documents for the RFQ submittal. Again, one of the things that we talked about that is certainly something to consider just to make it more even would be to actually create a scoring criteria to be able to grade these proposals on. The current city scope does not have that. I don't know, Tina, if you all ran into any issues doing it that way, or?
No, maybe there was, I would need to check if there was a scoring criteria, but I do remember, there was a committee at that time, which was the Arts and Culture Committee, that evaluated the proposals for us. So, I would need to check, I know I sent you some stuff, I'll double check if there's a points, they always go by points, most proposals, but the biggest component here was that they stayed within budget, because that's all the budget we had for the project.
Right.
So, they did, and we, at that time, we got like 3 different, and the budgets were very different.
Right.
So I think they ended up going with, I think they voted that way.
I see, okay.
But
Well,
I'll double check if there was a point criteria.
yeah, so we've just sort of broken this down as, 5 criteria, 2020, 2020. I mean, we can adjust those point scores, should you want to do that. But obviously, the important things, like on the City of Laredo qualifications, we want to get the artist qualifications, their portfolio, obviously, related experience. We've talked about, like a proposal of what they intend to put up there, right? We've been kind of going back and forth of whether to limit the scope of the theme, I guess, of the mural, or if we want to leave it open. I think it's something that we need to discuss as with the committee or here with the board. We do have a note on here for committed collaboration with property owners and other stakeholders. If we're doing that was more related to when we're talking with the private entities. And I'll get to that in a few minutes, because there's something else that we can look at as well related to that. So, but in this case, since we're trying to work with the public entities, maybe that scoring criteria is minimized. And then obviously to match and leverage offered funding, both monetary and in kind, including any volunteering. So the budget is
Yes.
going to be the key component for that. we did talk about developing the cost categories. We also have discussed potentially setting some limits for the murals, saying, I know these are the two examples that we're showing you are very large murals. They're basically entire sides of buildings. So, we've talked about, do we limit, I think we have $50,000 allotted or earmarked for the murals. Do we just say you can only use 25 or 30 or half or whatever, right? Like that's another decision that I think needs to be discussed. The other item, that the final approval of the art will be required by the TERS board and the property owner, so you guys ultimately will get final approval on that, of what can be submitted. Another thing that we discussed is maybe, once that final selection is made, maybe there's 2 or 3 options that we could put it to a public vote, similar to the monument signage that we did, to further involve the public at large, to provide their input as well. So those are different things. Ultimately, what we want to get is to bring back something to you guys to be able to look at and to score, so that we can get this project moving. Just in one last item, and Mr. Viles has talked to us about some other programs across the country that are being done, and one of them in particular that we found to be very, very exciting was a program in San Francisco, where they have a website, and on that website, it's actually really neat. They have a portal for interested artists to send their names in, right? So there's a Google form. They say, hey, I'm an artist, I'm interested, put me on your list, right? Almost like a bidders list. But on top of that, which is even better, is there's a section for the downtown owners also, or the building owners, that they can say, hey, I want you to put a mural on my building, so that we're not having to go look for them. They're actually coming to us. I think we can create, on the website that I just showed, I think we can create another section for that just talks about the murals. And maybe we'll get some interested people to sign up. And that way, as we move forward with the addition, with the privately owned murals, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it, that it's easier to deal with someone that wants it there, as opposed to searching out a property owner who may not even be living here. So again, those are the things that we've been talking about. I know I've kind of thrown a lot of stuff at you guys here, but we do want to kind of open it up for discussion and see what you all think.
So, Rick, do you mind putting up that Paint the Void website?
Yeah, sure.
So they get a
Yeah.
sense of that. So that particular program matches, their purpose is to match the private business owner with the artist. They actually, that nonprofit group selects the location, and then they select they identify the location and select it, and then they match the artist, so that it makes it easier. And I was telling Rick that seems like a smart, it's not ambiguous. It's like you have someone that's willing to work with you, as opposed to like knocking on the door. And so that's something for the board to think about. Do we want to plainly open it up and see who comes in, or do we want to identify locations and invite property owners to work with us? It's really up to all of us here.
So you can see here that they have a tab called Get Involved, and there's a section so that anybody can donate if they want to donate to more murals downtown, or you can apply to be an artist, or hey, receive a free mural, right? So if you click here, it asks, or apply for a mural on your business, and then there's a process. But again, you just apply here. It takes you to a Google form. Well, I can't get to it, but maybe I can do it under Arnold's name.
He signed out.
He signed up. So it takes you to a Google form. You put in your name, and they will, put you on the list, right? So
Can you scroll down through the homepage?
So, Mr. Chairman, when you say which way we should go, I almost say we should do both at the same time, because maybe the first one, we have to go ask somebody, but then if we're starting the first one, another business owner sees, hey, I like that, we're already set up to where they can go on there, and maybe, and,
We have between 50,000, even though it's is a significant amount. It's not a small, like, it's not $5,000. If you, I want you to see how the board muraling is beautiful, like you turn something that's just completely abandoned and make it, you know, bring it to life, so to speak, at least while it's not being operational. So that's, you know, I've been interested in this item, if you recall, went back for 60 days, nothing happened, it came back, it's been a while. I would like to mobilize it. If you all feel that, and we're very close to putting some more framework, that you want to have our consultants put more framework and bring it back, we can do that. However you feel. The portal is a very, when Rick says portal, it's really like a 6-point application, not application, but questionnaire. It's very simple. If you go to the About Us FAQ, I think they have the form somewhere here.
Like, how do I apply?
Yeah.
Well, I can't get to the form because it's a
Oh,
written
you can't,
form.
sorry.
But yeah, it basically says your name, you know, submit a portfolio, what is your race, gender, age, whatever, you know, like they just, it's like a 10-question, or might be maybe an 8-question
Yeah.
survey, essentially.
The city guide does, I was concerned for trying to somehow manage, you know, without controlling art and all that belongs to the artist, but they have a really good section on not, you know, not turning this into something that's not, like, nothing obscene, nothing that depicts things that, you know, needs to be modest, you know, whatever that means, but there's an attempt to put some sort of reasonableness over the art, which I think is an important piece. And then the legalities of releasing, you know, the city's agreement talks about the artist, you know, maintaining the art for 5 years. And so releasing the art to the city, the private landowner for pictures and other things, right? So all of those things need to be spelled out. But the city fortunately has already 2 agreements that we can work from. I'm not completely concerned that we start from scratch, because that's been, obviously it's worked. But it's really for the board to think through, do you want to take more time and frame it, or do you want to go, I would support either way to start. It's been my interest to start it, but, you know, 30 days is not going to kill us if we've waited a significant amount of time. Now, we do need to push to, you know, to finalize it, right? So the tiers and the amounts are really about, like, if you're going to do, if we have a business owner that says, this business has been on lease for a year, can you all put some art on there? I'll provide the plywood and you guys find the artist. $500, $600 for beautifying, you know, a storefront. So I think capturing that level of participation is important, as opposed to, I mentioned to Rick, if we put out $50,000, we're gonna come back with 4 major projects, and that's all we're gonna do.
Right.
Because there's enough out there, open walls, to be able to do that. And so those are the things that I would kind of lean on the board to think through, what kind of reach do we wanna have with $50,000?
We need to get something out there that's gonna get finished quick, so we can get some momentum. If we go with one giant one, it's gonna take 4 years or whatever to do it, and, you know, it's gonna take forever, but you know.
One you gave 45 days to, and the other 6 months, I saw in those 2. Yeah.
So one of the projects, I only handle one of the projects, not the other one, but one of them was in connection with a construction contract. So we were aware that we bid out the mural and the request at the beginning of the construction project, but then we told them you would have to coordinate with a contractor that at the time, because we were rehabbing that whole wall. So the wall was gonna get rehabbed, the windows were gonna be changed. So once that finished, that's why we gave it a little bit more time, because the project needed to come. But in this case, you might not, did you mention that the other one had a 45 days? That's probably something reasonable.
Right.
The proposal are, I mean, you can tier it different ways. In our project, I had a cap of how much of these funds I could use for the mural. So I established an amount on the proposal. I said, tell me what you can give me for this amount. And I got different different proposals, different sizes and different options. So you could also do it that way. You could put an amount and then see what comes. Now, if you all are, since this is gonna be a little bit different, and in this project, it was our building, the city's building, but if this project is not a city building, maybe there's some, well, fine, let's just say, you put $15,000 as your max. So they say, okay, I'll do 15, but I'm gonna get, the property owner to give me this, and this. So you might end up being able to leverage it as long as they're only using your cap, and you might end up getting something bigger. And that encouraged them to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's a conversation that we would need to approach the different entities.
Well, you leave it up to you could also leave it up to the artist.
The proposer.
Yeah, to bring you like a whole project, to tell you, these are our parameters of the downtown, and they bring you already an idea at a property owner, at a property.
Well, I think that,
That's one of the questions he's bringing up.
yes.
Do we want to do that and leave it up to them, or do we want to identify some locations that we're interested in?
I think we should get an inventory of some locations, that way we have,
Exactly.
you know.
That's what they've done.
No,
Yeah, we have about 8 locations. I only
You put
targeted,
that back up?
yeah, I only targeted the,
The publicly owned.
the publicly owned ones because.
It's
like,
easier
a
to get
known-
a,
Like the county, like I know who to go talk to, right?
yes.
Or housing authority, I know who to go talk to, as opposed to,
All these others are, I mean, these are private.
these are all private, so like the OXXO, here on San Agustin, which really would be a nice one because that's a very much traveled,
Absolutely.
thoroughfare. There's one on Salinas in Iturbide, Salinas in Zaragoza, ground level. Then I think we have the one we talked about, this one that really should be rehabbed, because it's
Who
beautiful.
owns that?
I don't know,
Orchards
that's the thing. You know.
Bakery.
Like, just so you know, like this particular one, just because I just looked it up before we walked in, this Farragut and Davis Street, this building, the owner owns that whole half block. I forget, it's like Norton something is the
I
owner.
acknowledge Councilmember Seattle Rice. I saw you walk in, I was like, in the midst of our conversation, thank you for joining us. And I know you have some thoughts about this mural program, so at any point, feel free to join us up here if you care to do that, or wherever you like. So the one location that's not there, and it's not really an open wall like those, is when you come out of Bridge 1 and those vacant buildings right there, that would be great for a storefront mural. I mean, I think all of us have walked that location.
Oh,
There's also a billboard that's unused up there, and I don't know who owns that building, but certainly a welcoming.
But it would be nice to get an inventory, paperwork already filled out, everything's good to go, and they're part of the inventory, and then we can start, we can actually start working with the artist, knowing full well we have everything documented that we can, you know what I'm saying? Because right now, we're saying these locations are all good to go, whatever, not really, we have to,
The owners need to be approached.
right, and they have to fill out the paperwork, I mean, just so we have the right.
So are you proposing that we do that work, that our team do that work?
I think it's best if it comes from us, because I wouldn't want to put that on an artist to have to go and try to sell the drawings. I'd like that we get the inventory, and then we can bring an artist, and they just worry about painting. They do what they do,
So you're using the paint the void model, which is we select the location and then we match the artist.
We just have an inventory of locations, and they're all good to go, and that way we can pick through them as we go.
How far are you all from having an inventory? Or have you done a full inventory or close to it?
All the storefronts?
Or, well, not the storefronts, but the open walls? Because there's plenty of storefronts too.
Like possible locations.
I don't think we have a full inventory of all of the locations open.
Because there's so many, right? There's-
No, not at all, no.
No, but we did a pretty thorough walkthrough of all of these.
But you want to go back to
I
one?
want to also, it just occurred to me that the building, one of the buildings where the housing is, one of the things that I wanted to bring up with this location and with other locations that we didn't pick because they were historic buildings is that if there's an investment made here and then there's a renovation, historic tax credits can be used for that, and they would, you know, I don't, how old is this particular building, and do you know if, I don't know if you know, or you know if there's
I don't think it's registered.
any desire to
Pretty old.
renovate? Huh?
It's pretty old, but it's not registered that I know of.
Well, yes, but even though it's not registered, it could be, you know, they could get some, between 25 and 45% tax, as you know, of a tax credit program. And so we have to be cognizant and ask that question when we get to speaking with the city or the housing authority on what they're planning to do with that, and if they're planning any renovations that might come in the next 10. The other thing is that these do fade, so it's not like they're
Lasts
there forever.
Right.
So that's another discussion that, I don't know what the city does where that's concerned. Do you have any policy on these murals that have gone up, that as they fade, do they repair them, or?
So, yes, so that's what, Rick showed.
Mhm.
There
During
was a
5 years.
request for 5 years for the artist
To come back as part of their
Within 5
original
years.
fee?
I believe
Or-
so.
Okay,
I
Yes,
believe
it's in
that's
the
how-
agreement.
Yes, I
Yeah.
believe that's how the agreement was.
okay.
Yeah, right here, maintenance after completion, the artist will not paint over, destroy, or alter the mural for no less than 5 years. The artist shall be responsible for maintenance, repairs, restoration, including graffiti abatement during its lifetime, which shall be no less than 5 years. So,
So for the rest of the board, do you have an inclination on whether we want to identify the locations ourselves? Is that your preference?
Yes, we should.
I do like the idea though of moving quickly on some of the, if we can find the public spaces where we don't have to work with private landowners and identify the historical questions and go through that process and get some traction going. I think I like that idea.
we can handle it, like you said, tackle it on both sides.
Yeah. I mean, because it could take off, you know, and then we get a business person that comes in and says, hey, I've got a wall, I'd like to do that, where do I go? We have a place to send them, you know.
Right.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion on this item as you all see us moving forward with this program.
We wait until we get to action.
Oh, yes, correct. We're still in discussion, so yeah.
Yeah,
we'll wait.
sorry, okay.
I see
So-
Camilla, I felt something over there, yeah.
So as far as the murals, that's all we have. I think there were, I don't have the agenda in front of me, but we have, related to the grant, as you all met 2 weeks ago, I apologize for not being here. I think that the tree grant, I think that went through. We actually have already worked with KCI to add more trees along some of our streets, now that we know we can get them covered. So we're working on that currently. I believe we've also, for the Phase 2 grant, we've submitted the project information form, correct?
Yes, it got resubmitted. It essentially looks the same way as the April one with minor change on the description. And I'll send you both that, any grant forms to load up to the website so people they can print them, including the others that we've done, I guess, the MPO,
Yeah.
the various grant programs.
So beyond that, those are the only updates I have currently. Oh, thank you.
So for purposes of Mr. Martinez, Mr. Castillo, so what we did essentially on that urban forestry grant is we pledged, it's not binding because we didn't, it's more of a support commitment letter, is we pledged that we would pull out the expenditure for the trees out of our grant and then back in that program or that expense from this new grant. And also opened up the opportunity to, if we did more, to be able to leverage that grant. So, and although it was a commitment in terms of a letter, it's not a financial commitment yet. So it'll come back to us if they get the award. You have any other updates?
No, I don't have any other updates at this time.
How are we doing with our plans and
That.
construction drawings?
Edward will talk about that.
He's got 2 weeks left, I heard.
We need to have a conversation about that, but I'll let Edward present what he has and.
Okay, great,
we'll go from
thank you.
So,
On the plazas, any update on the plazas alternatives? Are you doing that, Edward? On the parking alternatives for the
Yes.
plaza?
You want me to go up and?
Yeah, please. No, it's under information.
Okay, well,
I guess, Edward, you're gonna be talking about E, F, and G? That's you?
We both can talk about E and F.
Okay. And
No, you'll talk about F, and so I'll do E and G, I guess. Edward Ochoa with KCI for the record. Good afternoon. So I guess moving on to the E, the parking plaza alternatives layout. So what we did is we drew up a layout and we met with the traffic department and kind of discussed some of how that layout can work. We provided some input and some comments on that, that we need to look at possibly, you know, revising the approach to maybe how we do that. The main conversation, I guess, is there is some space to put some angled parking, but it may reduce some of the parallel parking. So the idea, and we're talking specifically right now about the Laredo Center for the Arts Plaza. That was kind of the main discussion. Around that one, if we put angled parking around the inside, they've got parallel parking on the outside. And I think one of the comments, if I'm not mistaken from him, was there may be some limitation in spaces, or, you know, there might not be enough room for somebody to back up, or they could hit, you know, the parallel parking space. I mean, spatially from research that we did, it should be able to work on most of the sides. The side that it would not work, and we agreed to leave parallel parking, would be the east side, which is the side where the police have their station. It's a narrower street.
Right.
But the other side, it seems to work. I think we might need to circle back with them and maybe negotiate an alternative to that to make it work. The other discussion too that they brought up, which we knew was something that needed to be discussed, was currently they have parallel parking, and so you've got parking meters, right? And so what the idea is, if you go with the angled parking, what do you do? We had always, I think we've talked several meetings about the concept of incorporating a kiosk type concept, kind of a kiosk where you pay and input your license plate. There's different methods, or different models of those. They said that they have one or two of those in Laredo, and I think it's an expensive addition. So I think we need to have a discussion of, if we do change it to the angled parking, we almost need to decide, you know, what is gonna be done, right? Now you're gonna be adding more spaces, so are we just gonna go ahead and put coin-based or the normal parking meter that we're all used to seeing that's out there, and we're just gonna add a bunch more of that? Or are we gonna look at the kiosk type system? And I don't remember the ticket price exactly, but I thought, do you recall, Andrea? 40,000, I was gonna say $40,000 was what I recalled.
Oh,
For the kiosk.
For the kiosk.
For the kiosk.
how does that compare to having, 25 or 30 more of the normal coin operated?
Yeah, so I think it'd probably be 25 more. We didn't ask them for a price for getting the coin operated. We were trying to push at the meeting a little bit more towards the kiosk alternative, right?
Yeah. Well, my thought is just if it's 40,000 for that,
And
is it
30,000 for the
40,000
other one.
more
Yeah.
than what we have now? But if we have to go buy $20,000 worth of the coin operated, is really the difference is 20, not 40.
Correct. Yeah. I think we need to circle back with them and get that all figured out.
excuse me, Mr. Chairman, would it be possible, or would it make sense to do the angled parking And then the parallel parking, allow it to be, from 6 to 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, something like that. Because I know we need parking for the evening rush, but during the day, you know, the parallel parking is not there, but in the evening, they can park there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I don't know how you could restrict or monitor that, right? That would be a policing deal, but I don't know how you would sign that to say, well, I guess you could put a sign that says no parking from, you know, 2 AM or whatever, 6 AM to 6 PM, you know, or something like that. And it would just say on the sign, and then after that, there'd be parking, but then you'd have to have parking meters there. We need to look at kind of that alternative to doing that.
Edward, so how did the meeting end? Are you guys reconvening, or was it more like there's an objection and it stalled?
I think it was more of an objection and it kind of stalled a little bit. I think we needed to just circle back with the comments that we got, and we as a design team kind of talked a little bit about it. But if it's something that the TERS board wants to do, we probably need to look at pushing it.
Yes, so it's not on the agenda, but we can put it for the next meeting, and you guys can bring your suggested design. We can vote on it to make a recommendation to the city manager or council member to kind of begin those discussions to bring us together. If we feel that strongly, I mean, everybody in this room has agreed that angled parking is a good fit there.
It should generate more it should also generate more revenue too. You
Yeah.
have more spaces to do that.
Yeah.
We're trying to increase parking.
Yeah, so this was going to increase parking too, right?
Well, that's what Andrea was just showing me from her notes was if we got rid of the parallel parking, which seemed to be kind of an objection, he was like, you might not have enough room, and I was like,
You're
well.
backing into traffic kind of
Yeah,
thing, right? Yeah.
backing into traffic, and if we got rid of the angled parking, if we added the angled parking and got rid of the parallel parking on that one side, so you would only be left with angled parking on the interior, you'd only gain 3 spaces. So we kind of need to work out a way to keep the parallel parking on the exterior of the plaza and the angled parking on the interior of the plaza, because in doing so, we gain like 20-something spaces.
But what angle are you putting them at?
45 seems to be the most efficient angle.
If we tweaked it a little bit more, I mean, they're worried that you're gonna come straight back and hit a car, but angled, you're coming out, you're not necessarily coming towards the car, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and again, some of it too is, you know, we haven't surveyed this area to know exactly curb to curb. Again, it was all kind of a
But this used to be
schematic,
angled
everything
too,
was
right?
kind of done on a
Wasn't it
schematic.
angled at some
Yes,
point?
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, we initially did everything kind of in a schematic perspective to initiate the conversation and see kind of where it went with the traffic department.
Does the board want to see this item come back as a formal item? Just trying to read the board. I would like to
We
personally.
need, yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
So we-
We need more parking.
If we could, maybe take an official vote on it and then issue a letter to the council person of the district showing our support for it
Yeah,
and seeing if that would help.
with a drawing, conceptual drawing.
Yeah, I think we need to work on a more detailed drawing for it to kind of push on the concept with the traffic department.
She was trying not to talk.
And to coordinate,
Are you talking about angle parking at the,
Where the Plaza Theater is,
Center for the Arts.
Center for the
on
Arts,
both sides? Or just-
3 sides.
it would be on 3 sides of the interior, everything except the east side.
I'm also a fan of moving direction of progress and have one heated station.
Yeah,
Oh, the kiosk, she
yeah,
agreed
the
with
kiosk concept, you know, we've talked about the kiosk concept, I think, several times to the TERS board to be maybe applied in several different spots, right, moving forward. But I think this would be a good location to initiate that, you know, idea, right? Or that model.
Orly, you wanna make a motion on this?
Oh, we're
And
still
I'll
in
second the
discussion.
mo-
We don't have it on the agenda, but, I mean, he can prepare it. I'll put the item on next month.
Right.
So I would like to express the need that we need to maybe have more input at these meetings with the, with the different departments, because we get, like, for instance, this parking issue around the plaza, really, and thank you for being so nice, because he's wonderful, he's a nice person, but we should be able to do this, and we're just getting pushback.
It's a constructive measure that should,
That's why I was saying that maybe as a committee, that we vote to support this idea.
Yes.
And then do a letter of support and then present it to the councilwoman of the district
I think that's
so that she could have.
really
and
great.
the city
Have that.
manager as well.
Can I make another point? Historically, it used to be angled parking,
Correct.
Yes.
and, you know, if it works on South Congress and Austin, I don't know a busier street, so.
Not only that, they park backwards.
Yeah.
They have to park backwards.
There's been some upgrades to the Center for the Arts area over the years, so old pictures show the angled parking. Looks like there's a lot of space, it's been modified a little bit, right? But still,
There's still space.
I do think there is space to do it, yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the courtesy of you meeting with them at our request, I think that goes a long way too. We bring it back and we take action as suggested,
Yeah.
and we go forward from there.
We have stoplights at every corner, so it breaks up the traffic, you know, it just, be done.
Do we want to put sort of in this item for next month?
Yes, we'll-
Just this one individual, but also the other 3 plazas we talked about, to sort of say this.
I'm interested in the San Agustin Plaza. I know that you all haven't begun to study it.
The San Agustin Plaza, I mean, we've looked at it and we've discussed it several times. One of the unique, San Agustin Plaza operates in a very different way traffic-wise, if you all are aware, right? There's, first off, on the east side of the San Agustin Plaza in front of the church, there's a taxi drop-off. It's signed for taxis, so then you have taxis waiting there. So that's one side that you'd have to contend with. Then you have, you know, the La Posada side and the west side, both, I mean, I've been through there on a Saturday and it's bumper to bumper with people dropping people off, right? So it operates quite differently. We might have to think that one through a little bit, right? And there may be some, maybe traffic flow discussions that happen.
Well, let's start with this one. I'll write the item that's broad, but for a recommendation on the
Yes, sir.
Center for the Arts.
This one, I believe, in my personal opinion, I think might be the easiest one to pull off, you know, relatively speaking to the other plazas. But certainly, I mean, the discussion going back to that concept to be applied around town certainly should lend itself, you know, in many of the plazas. A lot of the plazas have the actual curb of the plazas narrower. You tend to find the roads are a little bit wider because of how they were done before with angle parking.
All right. Thank you very much for that update, and I'll add that to the agenda. You want to move on to it?
Okay,
Do you have
just one last thing. I mean, would this board consider putting up the money for one of those units? I don't know what you call the units, but.
Kiosk, yeah.
Because it's a block, I'm just thinking about how, like when you go to Austin, how you do it. But if I'm parked on the far side, I gotta walk clear across to the other corner to pay and then walk back and put the ticket in my car. So it might need 2 of those units. And maybe we split it, and we buy one, the city buys one, or we work on something to just kind of support the downtown, you know, area.
I think we should consider that for sure.
Okay.
Go
Well, at the
ahead.
next meeting, we can talk more about that.
Yes, we can get to those, and I think, and I don't know if everything is, you need to acquire them, and I don't know if there's a cost-sharing program out there for those kiosks too, right? Where they pay for themselves as you collect.
If you're adding 22 spaces or 20 spaces, that's extra revenue that you didn't have before. So at some point, there's a value cost analysis that you can do that says, this thing's gonna pay for itself in 3 years, 5 years, whatever, right? So I think we can help with that analysis and to present to the board.
Thank you.
Okay,
Construction drawings update.
Construction drawing update. So, what we've been working on here, lately is addressing some of the comments, some of the comments that we received from the fire department and the traffic department too a little bit, but mostly fire department. So, just to remind everybody that, about 5 or 6 weeks ago, we met with the fire department. They brought one of their aerial ladder trucks downtown. And we went through the whole operation of how they operate, took measurements and everything. We took that information, digested it at the office, looked at how we could apply and make their aerial ladder truck operate a little bit better and be mindful to some of the comments and concerns that we got from the fire department. So what we've done is we've put together some exhibits to show that. We've submitted this to the fire department. I'm wanting to not only just submit it to them, but I do want to have a meeting with them so that we can kind of help explain what they see. So just in this example here, this is the Zaragoza Street, Block 1 we call it, Zaragoza, between Salinas and Convent. So again, the east-west streets were what we were told by the fire department are the streets that their aerial ladder truck needs to have, accessibility to drive down. The aerial ladder truck, again, it's their largest vehicle. And so the east-west is kind of where we need to be mindful of their movement. And then as they turn onto some of these more important streets, Santa Ursula, they come down Santa Ursula and turn. And then here on this one that you see here, they come down Zaragoza to the end where it's closed off for pedestrians only, so their only choice is to turn north. So what you see here is, I know it's kind of cyan, might be a little bit hard to see, but it's right here. This is the aerial ladder truck. And so what we do is we use a turning, it's called auto turn. It's a turning software that you can use in AutoCAD. That'll show you the maneuverability or what happens when certain type of vehicle turns. So we actually had to custom design this vehicle for the aerial ladder truck. So that took a little time to get done. But what you see here is this is the truck, and as it comes to the intersection, the line that you see in red here, which is the line that I'm pointing at here, those are the wheels, the wheel path. And then the green line, which is a little bit fainter, I'll zoom into it real quick. You see this green line right here. That green line is kind of their bumper. It's the exterior of kind of an overhang bumper. So what we're having to do is run the analysis of the vehicle staying within the curb and then looking at, what it affects. So we ran this analysis at this particular intersection and then came back and made adjustments to make it work. So I think we've accommodated that for them, and we've sent this via email to them, and I'm working on setting up a meeting here, hopefully maybe this week with them so that I can sit down and discuss this and hopefully get a concurrence from the fire department. One of the other concerns that they had, which you'll see on this exhibit and I'll show you on the other ones, is whenever they stop mid-block to get on their aerial truck, you get the ladder up on the truck, they stop and the truck has booms that stick out. And so they kind of project out of the truck and set down, and they kind of make sure the truck is on a level spot before they bring the ladder up. And in many of the current streets in downtown, you'll see that there's no room to do that. Even on where they drive with cars parked on both sides, they struggle with putting out the booms. And if they don't put the booms out, then the ladder can't go up. And so that was one of their concerns that they had, to try to be mindful of finding some spots where they could possibly do that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just real quick, a comment. I don't think when downtown was designed, they were designing to that size of that vehicle. So they're wanting us to adjust downtown to fit a vehicle that was never designed to be going downtown. Does the fire department have other options for the downtown area? other procedures? Because obviously, most of those streets are not gonna be able to take that big boom. And I'm not saying that I don't want a fire truck there, I'm just saying, it seems like we're adjusting to the truck, and we're not gonna win that battle. We're just not.
Yeah, I did bring up that question, and I was told that whenever there's a call to downtown, that they have at least one aerial ladder truck, if not two, sometimes, that makes every call. I didn't know how to argue that point, right?
So Edward, the give here, or the concession to accommodate the fire department is you created a fire lane so they could go out and extend those legs, right?
So on this particular block, because we're only improving the north side because of the
Right.
taxi and loading on the south side, then to not have to create a curbed area on the south side, we thought would just be best to label it as fire lane, so that you lose one loading, unloading spot to make that happen.
If not doing that, then the person parked there would need to move their car so they can accommodate, right? So those are, if we decided that we wouldn't do that, I mean, we probably couldn't get a permit, right? But, but that would be taking that concession back as saying, well, if there's a car there, ask them to move, so you could set your truck up.
Correct. Or they would move it.
A fire, they'll move it for
Or I
you.
think they would.
Yeah.
They won't ask for it.
You know,
Exactly.
I'm sure there's some ability.
What is the most important give or concession that you're having to do with the design because of accommodation to the fire department?
I mean, it's not really, I mean, there's some concession at the intersection, because we originally had some bump outs, as we call them,
Oh, I see.
kind of brought the sidewalks in a little bit. And we had to take those out, or we had to look at a different approach, pretty much take those out. Because as you can see here, the fire truck going from this lane literally has to go to the outside lane of Convent, and that's because
Right.
Convent's a wide street. And it takes up almost the entire, I mean, here you could see that the wheel path is going over a small portion of the sidewalk. And at
Right.
this point, the sidewalk is level with the road, so it's doable. But there was concessions to the intersection that we had to make to allow that. And then the other one is, you can see here, striping out a fire lane. And I can open up one of the other ones also.
You're doing that in multiple locations?
So we are doing that at multiple locations.
We're also losing parking, right? One parking space?
You would end up losing some parking space. This is the Santa Ursula going to Iturbide. So right now you come southbound on Santa Ursula. And so this maneuver starts over here and goes this way. So again, following the same path, we had some bump outs in this area here and here that we had to, constrain back to the path that the truck is making there. They do come down Santa Ursula, from what we were told is they come down Santa Ursula, and depending on where the fire is in downtown, they find, the east-west road that gets them to it from Santa Ursula. So this is kind of, I guess, from what we were told, an important path from Santa Ursula down to Iturbide. Once they're on Iturbide, they don't necessarily turn up north-south on the streets. What they did when they were out there was they went all the way to Santa Maria, which is a wider street, and they were able to turn Santa Maria north-south, and then they can get themselves back out from downtown. So we did make some concessions to the intersection here to allow for this maneuver to happen. And then what we did on this particular block was, again, finding kind of a mid-block spot for them to set up. On this section of Iturbide, you still have driveways to some of the businesses or properties, north and south. So strategically, here, we're not really losing anything because we we can show them, you can park right here and you can extend your booms out in front of the driveway. Nobody's
That's
parking in front of the
Banderas,
driveway.
right? Siete Banderas on the south.
This is, no, sir, this is actually the driveway to, this is right across from, the corner where they have the food truck in this parking lot over here.
Okay.
They're right across from, the Mexi-Q that's there, right? Levy's? So here in this particular block, I think we were able to accommodate where it probably didn't affect it any. But on one of the other, on the next block over, this is the Siete Banderas block coming through there. This is kind of our solution to it, is the fire truck, we ended up creating a larger island, bump out island, that would allow the fire truck to extend the boom, for example, here, 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 and here. So those booms can be placed on the sidewalk. And so instead of having kind of some alternative, where the trees
Staggered.
kind of staggered down the street, we'd have to find a spot in the middle to give it to them.
So like there, as an observation, couldn't they do that in the intersection so we don't have to do that? Because they could reach Siete Banderas from there.
Correct. So we,
Because that really, I think, we're locking ourselves in to that 10-foot right away where we don't need to.
yeah. So we're not showing it in the drawing because it's exactly what you just said. If they park at the intersection and set up their booms, then it works, right? But again, we need to check kind of the analysis of how the ladder
How
truck
far
works and
they
how
can
far it
reach,
extends.
yeah.
We were told that, we understood that it didn't reach, you'd still have to have one in the middle. Because the blocks are 333 feet, so if they set up, that ladder truck would have to be 150 feet long and then go up, so.
Because Siete Banderas is at the corner.
Yes, sir. It's, in this particular drawing, it's at this corner right here. So this is San Bernardo. So the aerial ladder truck could park right there and extend its booms and reach however it could reach radially from that corner, right? But if it's set up at San Bernardo and then set up at Santa Ursula, we understood that it would not reach to the middle. We'd have to give another spot to the middle. So the discussion there is, again, kind of what you've said. I mean, they don't have it now, right?
Would it be a problem to remove that concession? Or you've already sent it?
We've emailed it to them as, for
Okay.
a point of discussion.
Right.
But, I guess at this point,
It's
they,
full of parking lots too, like, I'm sure somebody could build multi-story building a few years from now, but there's definitely access today from parking lots or the intersection for Siete Banderas and J.C. Twist building too.
yeah.
Well, there's also options for narrower trucks. I was Googling to see if there's such a thing as with a ladder.
Because to me, that's not your preferred design, you had it staggered, I remember that.
We had it staggered, correct. This ends up taking up some more space. I mean, we're able to put a tree in between the booms where the booms can land, but, this is just
Does
kind of,
anybody else feel strongly about it, or is it, it's,
I mean, from our design team, I mean,
I don't think
It's-
we can beat the fire department, to be honest with you.
I mean, it's,
I mean,
but we're kind of at that point where, we've received some comments and we're just trying to find the best way to address those comments.
and I agree, I think we
I
should
think
be
there needs to be a
cooperative.
discussion.
I think the concession, what exists right now is a lesson opportunity, it's less than what we are building, that's in my opinion.
Yeah.
Oh, we just gotta work with them,
This particular one is kind of seems important to me, is, that we don't lock ourselves back into that 12-foot when Is it continuously 12 feet down all the way
Driveways on
to,
the street, yeah.
to Santa Ursula, Edward? Does it stay 12 feet?
We might be able to do it there, but it depends on that thing. Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Does it stay 12 feet from Santa Ursula to Convent or to the project there, the end of the project area?
Yeah, for the most part, we've got 12 feet, and then at the intersections, just depending on, here we were able to get 14 feet, here it's 15 feet. So, and at this particular intersection, it almost has to do with kind of lining up curb lines a little bit, but for the most part, we're trying to maintain at a minimum 11 feet. In some spots, we go 12 and then 14s at the intersection. So,
So there's some existing driveways on this block that maybe it's not mid-block, but we can utilize the existing driveways to essentially get us the parking that we want. in the
The city has a parking lot.
There's,
And
yeah,
then
there's.
the JC
and then
Twist.
JC Twist, and we're not messing with those driveways, so technically that's a space where they can push their booms out.
Right.
We just need to see if it fits.
yeah, and then, like these driveways are staggered a little bit, so, we have to see how that could work for them. But a lot of what we've been doing here is just trying to really think outside the box on some of these to address the comments is really, we presented the plan set for review, and those are the comments that we get back, and we're trying to figure out how to address them, really. It's
All right.
quite unique and some different approaches to it.
Mr. Martinez doesn't think we have a shot, but I would like for you to notate my comment. Tell him that you had that comment from a board member.
Excuse me, are we considering, removing parking and make this all pedestrian, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, something of that nature, where there's no parking on this street?
And we haven't really discussed that.
We haven't-
It's just been more of a technical exercise than a program.
Because I'm, not that I frequent the area, but I'm hearing it's getting better and more popular.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And, I fear having those cars go through there when you have a bunch of people, outside the clubs and stuff like that, and, kind of stop the traffic during the weekends. And I did submit a letter to the police chief to suggest that they make it pedestrian. I think even PD was liking the idea for safety. And if that's the case, that helps out the fire department also, because there's no cars parked, they can open up whenever and wherever,
Right, that makes sense. All right. So for the sake of time, you're gonna get feedback from the fire department. Edward, realistically, when do you see you getting to 100% ready to put this out?
So really, it's, getting feedback from the fire department, getting some feedback from the traffic department on, I'll go back to the convent one. Yeah. So I'll bring you kind of back to the convent intersection. So if you see that there, this is Convent in Zaragoza. So we've taken some of that feedback and, accommodated the fire department, turning maneuver. And it kind of caused us to kind of look at a different approach to the sidewalk ramps. And so what you see here is the sidewalk ramps where, at this point, the sidewalk is the same level as the street. So, you ramp down, and then at the intersection, you'll have a large area that they can maneuver, whether they ramp down once and they can cross here, or come over here and cross over here, and so on. And so in doing that, the other concept, working with the design team, is looking at relocating the traffic signal poles that are at the four corners. And the architect team has a concept of a feature that can be hung up kind of over this intersection. And so in doing so, we would need to relocate the traffic signal poles to kind of accommodate that. There's a design in Houston that you may be familiar with, kind of at the Galleria area, Galleria Westheimer. where they've got that silver ring that hangs over the intersections. And I think generally that's kind of what you all are looking at, but structurally, you'll have to bring those traffic poles in so that everything can hang on it.
For the future, for.
Future.
Yeah.
For future, yeah. So, but in doing so, we would need to make sure that we can work that out with the traffic department and then see how we can prep conduits, I guess, if it's gonna be something that's not done with the phase one project, then we need to look at ways of bringing conduits to those points and capping them or putting them at ground level. So we do have this intersection to kind of get a blessing from the traffic department on, or find out if there's anything else we need to include. And then, you know, we have gone in and added more trees, kind of going back to what was mentioned earlier with the tree grant. You know, we've come in and added, on this particular block, we added more trees along there, and now we're looking at how that tree and a tree grate concept could work. So we've done all those upgrades. Really for me, I mean, I could tell you that really would like to get through and getting kind of the blessing from the final departments. And once we do that, I think it's really 30 to 45 days and we can wrap everything up. I mean, we have, oh, I'm sorry. We also are coordinating with AEP. So remember, we met with AEP in the field and walked through the Zaragoza project. And they're looking at you know, upgrading the poles and relocating some of their poles. I've been communicating with AEP, and last was told that they'll try to have a design and cost estimate for us by next week. So whatever they come up with from a design on this particular block of Zaragoza could affect, you know, my design as well. So there's just a lot of coordination that's going on with different entities that, you know, I really do want to just wrangle it all together, get everybody's blessing so that we can finish the plan. So once I get, you know, all those issues ironed out with everybody, I think it's 30 to 45 days and I can turn in plans. So that's what we're
So I
really
know
just
for the
pushing
council
for.
member, they requested a follow-up meeting walkthrough for July 18th.
Correct.
So, yeah, we'll need to be there.
Yeah, yes, sir. I am hoping that we can at least be presented with a design before then. So maybe by next week, if they can get me the design and a cost estimate, you know, the cost estimate to relocate all the poles, but, you know, there's, you know, how that's gonna affect our project and our cost too, right? That's kind of an important component that,
So like in terms of drawings, you're pretty much done, right? You're just tweaking, or?
I mean,
are
we're
you still
pretty
have
much
some-
done and kind of tweaking those things. You know, there's certainly in addressing a lot of those issues or comments or whatever could require us to draw a couple extra details here and there. But yeah, I mean, we're pretty much at that almost end point where we just need to know exactly what we're going with so that we can finish things up.
Yeah, and Ray, for the next meeting, if you all can work on the first part of the RFQ,
Yeah.
so we can get those,
Yeah.
that, I think, while Edward's finishing up, getting all those, wrapping up those, yes, and activate that. That's a pre-qualification process we talked about
Yeah.
at the last meeting, for the first step. Any other updates?
Actually, I do want to ask a question about that. So on the pre-qualification process, are we doing that for phase one as well? Because I thought we were just doing that for phase two because of the text dot issue.
I really think it's a good way to go, and we could put it for a vote next meeting.
Yeah, because the pre-qualification was just because they didn't allow us to do like a CMAR or like a RFQ.
Yeah.
Competitively sealed.
But I like that idea of making it fair for the proposers, right? So you don't,
Okay,
you know.
well, that's fine. It can help us develop what we're going to do for
Yeah.
phase two anyway, so, okay.
So we haven't officially voted on the procurement method, so it'll come back next month.
On the procurement method for this phase, is that what you're saying? Yeah.
I think we would
Put it
want
as
to,
an
so
action
we,
item.
yes, as an action item, so we can actually be ready to put this out. And if, I mean, depending on what AP releases too, right? They might, depending what you get next week.
Correct, correct. I mean, really for me, it's just the location of the poles. How often do they see in their design that they're gonna need those poles? I mean, we talk conceptually in the field, about location, so I've kind of worked my design to fit that. But if they add a pole or two somewhere in between that I'm not aware of, then I need to look at, making it work in our design. That's what I'm concerned about, finishing that off. We're ready to kind of wrap things up also, but we just need to kind of tighten up these last ends with some of the departments and entities so that we can
Okay, sounds good.
kind of cross the finish line.
All right, any questions from the board or anything else from the team? Thank you very much for those presentations, those updates. We'll move on to the action items. Item 8, update and discussion with possible action related to the implementation of TERS number 1 mural program, initiating a solicitation for project setting key requirements and any matters incident thereto.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see if, to make a motion to come back with some dates, put some dates to this. And then also for the steps on how they're gonna start the initiation, the solicitation of projects. How
You
they're
want
gonna
to
go
see
out,
the structure?
of what they're gonna do to go out and get some locations.
Yeah, what about the sites? We need.
Sites.
I thought
The
we.
sites, that's what
spoke
they're-
about
Is there a second and we get to discussion on the item?
So it'd just be a calendar of dates of when we want to start, and then talk about how are we going to go through the process of asking people to beef up our inventory so we can get started.
I'm gonna second it, and I'd like to see if, I like the idea of us identifying at least some locations like you've suggested, Rick. And if you would agree, formulating all the criteria, the guidelines that we would put out by the next meeting, that include that. I think the other piece is to not leave out the storefronts. I think that's very important that we open that opportunity up. Do you all have
I'll accept that in the motion, so.
I was gonna say, can we clarify the motion?
So I think the motion is to set up those parameters, right, Orlando?
Right.
Timeline. And,
Timeline and the plan to go and get inventory, adding the storefronts, and then come back with the criteria established so we can vote on that.
What about approaching the targets that we
Absolutely.
identified? Do we do that as well?
Absolutely.
You're saying approach them before the item comes back?
Approach them before the item comes back.
You-
At least
I'm
start
okay
the
with that.
conversation with them, see if we can open to.
That's fine.
Right.
Shouldn't that be part of the motion to select the sites and the way
Well, I'll
of
put it
getting
in
the
there
artists?
if they wanna make the phone calls to come back to us with, see what they said, and if they're willing.
Because right now we have, I think we talked about having this parallel approach, right? Where we're setting the calendar, identifying the locations, and formulating the guidelines as one. And then we've also identified some public entities that we can approach. Obviously, we don't have the guidelines yet, but at least we want to be able to approach them in whatever order you want us to approach them.
One through eight.
To be able to have those conversations with them.
Yeah, because here we are thinking they'll
They could
jump
say,
on
they
board.
could
They
say
could
no,
be
like, we
no.
don't want you to do anything, and then
I
we'll turn
also
it back to
think,
square one.
and I don't know if the board agrees, but having the smaller opportunities for the smaller artists, that want to take on a small storefront. I think, I don't want to end up with like 3 big murals and we
Yeah.
go through $50,000.
So then,
The key to my motion is that I want to start creating inventory, whether it's small, big, let's just get inventory, because we need that so that we can
Then-
start getting to the
yeah,
artists.
then I would say that we just take that approach right now,
Okay.
and not even mess with this other approach.
Would you consider also in the motion asking Able City to create that web portal to communicate with the artists and the business owners?
I'd like that. And we have a sample from the one
Yes,
that
there's
you
a
showed us,
sample and
so,
it should be relatively
Easy.
easy, so.
yeah.
I mean, guys, we can use this as guidance. We don't have to recreate the wheel here.
Correct.
What Tina did with, it's pretty good. I'm looking at
And
it.
it's worked. I mean,
It has
the
worked.
murals are up. The only thing, they were costly, so that's the caution, right? So they were not not inexpensive. And I really don't know how much commissioning an artist, I think that can vary. I'm not in that field,
It
but,
varies.
okay, we generally have recorded the item, so.
Long motion.
Motion and a second. I think the gist of it is to create these guidelines and put some structure back into it. And it'll come back for final before we put this out.
Yeah, okay.
Moved and second. Any additional discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? None, motion passes. Thank you very much. And thanks for doing all that work to get us to this point, Rick and team. All right, next item is update, presentation, discussion with possible action related to the TERS number 1 ongoing improvement design work in coordination with the city departments as may be required or requested by the design team. I don't think we haven't, you all are requesting any action on this one? Only, for me, Edward, is just to speak to the fire department. It won't be an action item, but just my comment about maybe working that particular block so we don't end up with that compressed.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yeah, that's, I guess that item is kind of what we discussed already, so. But we've got that noted.
Okay. Next item is discussion and possible action regarding invoices submitted by Able City and KCI Technologies. You have, is
There's,
April?
there's only KCI.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. There's only 2 from KCI. I'll entertain a motion once you all feel we're ready.
I move to process payment as reported here.
It's been
Second.
moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? None, motion passes. Move to adjourn at 6:58. Is there a second?
Moved.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? None, motion passes. Thank you very much.